back to the Late Night History Show. I'm Julia Fallon.
And I'm Emily DeGeneres, and today we'll be interviewing a very important historical figure.
But first, let's go get him.
That's me.
Hi John, welcome to the Late Night History Show.
So John, how are you feeling today?
Dead. So, John Locke, can you tell me a bit about your early life?
Well, I was born in 1632 in Rington, Somerset, England. I went to school at Westminster School, where I received the distinct honor of being a King's Scholar. Later, I went to Christ Church University of Oxford, where I immersed myself in logic, metaphysics, and classical language. I returned for my Master's of Arts, then was elected Fellow of Royal Society, graduating with my Bachelor's in Medicine in 1674. I was able to receive a good education since my father's connections and allegiances to the English government after serving in the English Civil War. My parents were also Reformed Protestants, so I was raised that way as well. Shortly after I began my medical studies, I met Lord Ashley, who became the Earl of Shaftesbury. We grew closer and he asked me to move to London to be his personal physician. I didn't know it then, but this was the beginning of my journey as a philosopher.
So John, can you tell us a little bit about your books and some of the main ideas behind them?
Well, the first book I wrote was the Two Treatises of Government, where I proposed a solution to the political upheaval in England and in other modern countries, which later laid the foundation for modern forms of democracy and for the Constitution of the United States. In it, I talked about the political power and how it has the right to make laws for the protection and regulation of property, which only works because the people accept them and it's for the public good. Later in my book, I talked about how all human beings have an obligation to protect the interests of each other, since they are all equally children of God. I also talked about how Earth is considered property of all people, and each person owns their own body, and their property is directly impacted by their physical labor. The three elements necessary for a civil society are a common established law, a known and impartial body to give judgment, and the power to support such judgments.
What about your book on civil government?
Well, that book I mostly talked about how people must understand that to best protect themselves, they must come together in some way in a political body and agree to certain standards of behavior. They must give up natural freedoms to receive protection from the government, and I absolutely am against absolutism and unjust government.
So, what were the ideas outlined in your third book?
Well, it was mainly about how everyone starts with a blank mind, tabula rasa, and how everything we know, think, and believe comes from experience. We're most vulnerable to ideas when we are children, and how association of ideas when we are young are more important than when we are older, because they are the foundation of ourselves.
I kept this in mind when I was raising my child due to your theory.
What played a key role in influencing your views, which you later turned into your books?
And was there anyone in specific who played a major role in influencing you?
Well, my good friend Lord Ashley, who became the Lord of Shaftesbury, had a large influence on my professional career and on my political thoughts. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been a doctor and never pursued being a philosopher. As Shaftesbury's stature grew, my responsibilities also grew. I went from being a personal physician to being a government official, then political operative, and eventually a revolutionary. Shaftesbury created an outlook on government that stuck with me the rest of my life, influencing ideas in many of my books. However, my third book was influenced by letters I wrote to Edward Clark after he asked me advice on how to raise his son.
So John, what are your views on religious toleration?
Well, I believe that all religions should be legal to practice and respected. With that, however, I am strictly against atheism. I developed the understanding that people should not be locked up for their religions. You're welcome. I was heavily influenced by the breakup of the Catholic Church when I created my theory.
As of recently, within the election of Donald Trump, there has been a lot of concern surrounding the Muslim religion and the racism affecting them. America's public schools have started to track religious discrimination as anti-Muslim sentiment has been on the rise.
What are your views on how Donald Trump regards the Muslim religion and the effect it has on the children these days?
Well, it is my belief that our children are a product of their environment and start off in tabula rasa. a state in which they have a blank mind and are open to be molded into society. With the fact that public schools now have the need to monitor religious discrimination, it just shows how much effect Donald Trump has over our children. And the parents of these children that are supporting Donald Trump at home hold even more influence. As for his views concerning the Muslim religion, I believe that he should enforce more religious toleration. Muslims have become a part of America's community, and forcing them out, denying them entry, or trying to convert them to another religion would ultimately cause more harm than good. It creates social disorder to enforce religious unity, as we can already see within the school system.
On February 14th, this year in Florida, we witnessed one of the top 10 most horrendous school shootings in the U.S. 17 people were killed, including students and faculty members, by the 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz. This has brought up a lot of debate surrounding gun control and accessibility.
What are your thoughts about the American Declaration of Independence and the right to bear arms? Furthermore, how this affects the youth community?
Well, within my theory surrounding government, I believe that people should have the ability to overthrow their government if they impose on their rights. The Western society was heavily influenced by this when creating the American Declaration of Independence. From this was born the Amendment of Right to Bear Arms. But with that, the acts of violence committed at the school in Florida is not included within my belief. I think that it is truly a tragedy to lose that many young people with so much potential. As our children are so impressionable from birth, they should not be influenced in a way that would result in such horrifying acts. It is when they are fully grown with a proper mindset and the right knowledge, they should then hold the responsibility of holding firearms. My theory is only there to preserve the public rights, not take away from them as it did within this event.
John Locke was known to be the father of liberalism, with his contributions and theories that shaped many political beliefs to this day. He mainly supported classical liberalism with his beliefs surrounding life, liberty, and property. The Bill of Rights was based upon his work, along with the American Declaration of Independence. Locke believed that people would willingly consent to government control in order to preserve their own rights.
He coined the term tabula rasa within his studies of physiology and psychology. Religious toleration was first introduced by him when the Catholic Church broke up, introducing new ideas and thoughts on what to do with people who studied other religions. He also was one of the first to support the idea that governments should not take away the rights from the people. Based on all of his work, he created the foundation to classic liberalism.
Well, that's all for today.
And some could say that's history.